boy, I get to talk about the Marvel Netflix verse in full. Oh boy, this is gonna be so exciting. Quachi's giddy. He's fucking giddy. Oh, he's so giddy. Anyway, so the Marvel Netflix verse has come to an end, but I think it's nice to just look back and get a general overview of the story of the Marvel Netflix verse. So it all starts with Daredevil. Now there are some conflicting stories about how exactly the Daredevil show came to be. There's one story that says that Kevin Feige was trying to negotiate with Fox to try and actually get the Fantastic Four movie rights, but ended up getting Daredevil, and so he just ended up giving it to the TV side because they had no plans for Daredevil. However, there is another story that says that, that says that the film rights for Daredevil just ended up being reverted back to Marvel, and while Marvel Studios was considering a potential film of the character, the TV side worked their way into actually claiming rights over the Daredevil property in order to make their TV show. But no matter how exactly it came to be, in 2015 we've got the first season order of Daredevil. And it was great. It became one of Netflix's flagship shows along the likes of House of Cards and Orange is the New Black. 2015 was a different era. Anyway, it was a spectacular show that just showed a whole new level of complexity to the character, and for most people, their exposure to Daredevil was just the crappy Fox early 2000s film. But with this version, people loved him, and introduced at the time what many thought to be the best Marvel Universe villain, Kingpin, aka Wilson Fisk. And it became super popular. Now, after that, it looked like Marvel TV was interested in bringing other characters to the Netflix side of things, with its own mature TV rating, its own kind of focus on more mature and dark storylines. And the next show that would get its debut is Jessica Jones. While not as much action as Daredevil, it does take more of a noir feel in terms of dark atmosphere and complex characters. And Jessica Jones was a very complicated character in that she drank a lot, used to be happy, but things happened to her in the past where she's not so bright and cheery anymore. And we got the introduction of another great Marvel villain, Kilgrave. And no, that's not a nickname, that's his actual last name, Kilgrave. And he was a different kind of terrifying in this show as opposed to Kingpin. In fact, there's still a little bit of a debate between which villain is better, Kingpin or Kilgrave. But no matter what, Kilgrave would have a lasting impact on the show beyond the first season where his story ended. Now, after the release of the first season of Jessica Jones, we were then introduced to season 2 of Daredevil. Now, looking back on it now, season 2 of Daredevil is probably considered the is considered the worst of the Daredevil show. Not because it's actually a bad season, but because comparatively speaking, it's just not as good as seasons 1 and 3, more in season 3 later. But it was still a very entertaining season 2, introducing the debut of the character Elektra, serving as an ally slash enemy slash love interest for Daredevil, who will then work her way to become a sort of antagonist in another Marvel Netflix first installment, but more on that later. It also gave us the real formal introduction of the group The Hand, a ninja organization in the Marvel Universe. And they are a big Daredevil enemy, but they'll also end up being used as an enemy for other Marvel Netflix installments. But again, more on that later. The one thing that Daredevil Season 2 has that no other Daredevil season could claim is that it introduced the first great live action performance of Frank Castle, aka The Punisher. Oh my god, this is arguably the best part of Daredevil Season 2. He even gets his own Daredevil hallway fight. Well, doesn't actually involve Daredevil, but his hallway fight was in prison, taking on a whole bunch of prisoners and killing them all. And we see him take up the Punisher persona right at the final episode with the bulletproof vest, the skull spray painted, the coat, and the gun in hand. Oh boy. Whew. A lot of adrenaline. Where was I? Oh, yes. So, anyway, Daredevil Season 2, while maybe not the best Daredevil season, is still very much a memorable one. And it was around the release of this second season that it was pretty much confirmed that Marvel TV is working towards a crossover miniseries that would include Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and two other new characters, Luke Cage and Iron Fist, aka Danny Rand. And so the next installment to come up in this sub franchise of the MCU would be Luke Cage. Now, Luke Cage actually got his debut in season 1 of Jessica Jones. But in here, we actually learned more about his backstory, his personality. And he became the hero of Harlem, Harlem's public face of hero actions and nobility. I have no idea where I was going with that. The one thing that Luke Cage Season 1 sort of struggled with was finding a villain. It started off with a great villain, a Harlem crime boss named Cottonmouth, but he would then get killed off by his cousin, a politician slash senator. And then we then get a sort of replacement of sorts with a secret half brother to Luke Cage. It was a little confusing to be sure, but it was still a very interesting, engaging season 1 for Luke Cage, who actually ended up going to prison at the end of the first season. But don't worry, he's not going to stay there for long. He just had to finish carrying out a jail sentence that, while he was wrongly convicted of, he still has to pay in full. And then after that, we finally got the first season of Iron Fist, focusing on the title character, aka Danny Rand. This was the first time people did not like what Marvel Netflix had to have. Now, just to give you a general overview of what the character is, Danny Rand is the son of a famous business person. Actually, I think it's like two business people, both successful in business, who end up dying in a plane crash in the Himalaya area with their 15-year-old son. He was then raised by a secret mystical monk city called Kunlun, where he earned the power of the mystical Iron Fist, his sworn duty to protect Kunlun and defeat the evil group known as the Hand. And as an adult, I'd say in his 30s, he returns back to New York, tries to take on the Hand on his own, and he reconnects with some old friends from his past, while also taking on the Hand and making new friends, including Colleen Wing, a member of the Hand who ends up leaving the organization. I say the main flaw with this first season show was that Danny Rand was kind of a naive dumbass. I mean, he was taken to Kunlun as a 15-year-old kid, and in many ways, he still thinks and behaves like a 15-year-old kid, which I don't really understand. And he's kind of selfish and narcissistic in a way. He was, unfortunately, the most annoying part of that first season. Now, of course, I enjoyed Colleen Wing. There were a couple supporting characters that were enjoyable, and the Hand served its role well in this installment. But of course, it was obvious that they won't actually face any consequences for their actions until the next, and arguably the biggest, installment of the Marvel Netflix verse, which would be the Defenders miniseries. 8 episodes, Daredevil, Iron Fist, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, all coming together to take on the Hand once and for all. It got off to a slow start. only 8 episodes, which is shorter compared to the other show's more standard 13 episodes per season order. But it didn't take until like episode 4 until they're all together, not really into episode 5 where they all started working together. But once they actually did get to that part, it was pretty entertaining. Although we would learn the hard way later on that it didn't really seem like Marvel TV or Netflix had really any end goal after this miniseries. But that doesn't mean we still can't have fun after the Defenders miniseries. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the next season that came out after the Defenders was The Punisher season 1? I think that's right. Well, let's talk about it anyway. So, The Punisher back in Daredevil season 2 was such a surprise hit with fans that he ended up getting his own show, even though there were no original plans to give him his own show. And so we got The Punisher Season 1, the first release after the Defenders miniseries. In fact, now that I remember, the Defenders miniseries had post-credits scene that teased The Punisher first season. Now, the first season of this show sort of went back and briefly told the origin of Frank Castle, aka the Punisher, the death of his family, and all of that. But it was also furthering that origin story as well, adding its own stuff to it. And it was very entertaining. Of course, I wouldn't say the first season of The Punisher was the best of any Netflix Marvel release, but I thought it was really enjoyable and really cool to watch on screen. And of course, that final fight with him and Billy Russo, the confrontation between him and the CIA agent bad guy, I can't remember his name, that was pretty intense too. It was just awesome. Bloody, gory awesome. After that, our next release is season 2 of Jessica Jones, which again focused more on events that happened in her past that may not have ended up going on as she thought they had went on. And we got some conflict between her and the supporting character, her foster sister Trish. It was a slower season compared to Jessica Jones season 1, but I thought there was still some cool stuff to actually have in there. So basically at this point in the Marvel Netflix verse, it seems to be recurring criticism that while the seasons were good, they seem to go on for a little too long, with 13 episodes per season. This becoming even more cemented after the release of the next installment, Luke Cage Season 2. Now, there was some good stuff in this season, including a much better established villain in Bushmaster that served as a really cool parallel to Luke Cage's story, in a very similar way that the Punisher served as a cool parallel to the Daredevil story. And actually, Luke Cage Season 2 ended on a very surprising note, with him taking on the empire of the previous Harlem crime boss, but trying to use it for good and not actually become like a criminal, but more as like a sheriff of Harlem. It was a very intriguing note to end on for Luke Cage Season 2 and got me pretty excited. And actually, another thing that I actually kind of was surprised to like was Season 2 of Iron Fist that came out afterwards. Yeah, Season 2 of Iron Fist improved immensely. This is the first, and actually the only time, where a release from the Marvel Netflix cut the episode count from 13 episodes to 10, which I think actually worked in the show's advantage. Now, I don't know why they didn't use this for other future releases, but it worked really well for this release. And Danny Rand actually grew as a character, learned what he was doing wrong, ended up giving Colleen Wing the power of the Iron Fist and him to go and learn out more about, well, his past with Kung Lung and the Iron Fist in general, making Colleen Wing the hero of the Iron Fist in New York City, which was something a lot of fans were actually hoping for. Now, after the release of Iron Fist Season 2, the show got canceled straight up. This was a little bit of a disappointment because, from what I can gather, a lot of people were actually looking forward to Iron Fist Season 3 and what kind of stories it would have. And shortly after the cancellation of Iron Fist, we got the cancellation of Luke Cage, which got a lot of people worried. There were some to seem to think that this could lead to a Heroes for Hire crossover series that would have Danny Rand and Luke Cage working together. But the way both of those second seasons ended, I didn't really see that working out. But there was always a chance that there was still good news on the way, as we look forward to the third season of Daredevil, who hadn't been seen since the Defenders miniseries and was believed to be dead. But he came back. And oh my god, Daredevil Season 3 is the best season of the Daredevil show, loosely adapting the Born Again. I forgot the name of the actual comic, but it's the story where Kingpin learns who Daredevil's identity is and starts going after him in his personal life, causing Daredevil to sort of start towards mentally breaking and even trying to consider killing Kingpin outright. While the story in the TV show didn't plan out exactly like that, it was still very similar in terms of tone and feel, and Daredevil in the show really did consider just killing off Kingpin, breaking his rule. It was a fantastic third season that was really beautiful to watch on screen and had a lot of amazing stuff to watch. Unfortunately, after the release of Daredevil Season 3, the show got cancelled. Which means that the remaining two shows, The Punisher and Jessica Jones, it wasn't a question of if those shows will get cancelled, but when those shows will get cancelled. The next on the list was The Punisher Season 2. Now, The Punisher ended up actually completing his mission in Punisher Season 1. So it's hard to see how you could bring back a second season for him. But the way they handled the second season story for The Punisher and how it ended at the final episode, it was actually a very intriguing and introspective look into the character in general. Just what makes the Punisher who he is after he completes his mission of avenging his family. What keeps him going afterwards? What is his purpose? Those are themes explored in Punisher Season 2 that I think personally makes it one of the best releases of the Marvel Netflixverse by far. Of course, after the release of this season, The Punisher got cancelled, and they also canceled Jessica Jones, but promised the third season would still arrive. And we recently did get that. Personally, I thought third season of Jessica Jones got off to a pretty rocky start. But around the halfway point, it actually got very interesting. And actually really reflective of the Marvel Netflixverse in general in a sort of way, by having a surprise cameo from Luke Cage in the final episode, and just looking back on her growth as a character, where she ended up, and just what kind of a New York City now exists at the end of this release. Now, the Marvel Netflixverse shows Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and The Punisher. They weren't always a success, granted, but they gave us amazing TV shows and amazing moments and scenes to watch in live action. It was a very enjoyable experiment from Marvel, and I hope some of these shows do continue in this sort of way, but part of me also wishes that they don't, because there's always a sort of fascinating mystery by the what happened afterwards question. But that's all I really have to say about the Marvel Netflix shows right now. They were really great shows to watch at the end of the day, and I'm gonna be sad to see them end, which they are. Confusing note to end on, but what the hell. Like, comment, subscribe, share, and I'll see you guys next time.